This podcast may contain discussions of graphic violence, unsettling themes, supernatural phenomena, and other topics that some listeners may find disturbing or triggering. Listener discretion is advised. This podcast is intended for entertainment purposes only. The opinions expressed are simply those of the individual hosts and do not represent the profession of psychology or constitute professional advice.
This is the Secret Passage podcast. I am Dana Vespoli.
And I am Shannon Rogers.
And welcome to episode 3. Shannon, did you travel down any interesting secret passages this week?
I did. Well, there were so many. I mean, my whole work life is traveling down secret passages with people.
Right.
But my own secret passage was that I have a very, very narrow driveway because I live in an old home. And I don't know if it was like created for horse and carriages. I don't know what the deal is, but it's very narrow. And each side, it's a city, so people always block my driveway. And so we have to park our other car on the street so that we have enough space to get out. Because if somebody parks on the curb all the way at the edge, they block us in. I've had to drive down the sidewalk to get out of my driveway. So anyway, there's this car that keeps parking there and sticking its nose into my driveway. And this is like really embarrassing to admit. And I didn't do anything. I didn't actually take action. But I went onto Reddit and I went down a rabbit hole, a secret passage rabbit hole of like revenge, things you can do to get revenge on people who block your driveway.
Oh my God.
I know. I was like, how can I not get caught? Should I throw some nails under their tires? And apparently the one that seemed the most appealing and the least destructive to me was people put bird seed or breadcrumbs on top of someone's car so that birds will come and eat it and poop on their car.
Okay. Yeah.
But I didn't do anything. I refrained. I did leave a note on their car, and the next time we saw them parking there, they were very careful not to block us. So
that's really nice.
Yes.
That they were mindful, because I remember when I was in college, I dated a guy who lived right on College Avenue.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had a 1977 Ford Ranchero, which is basically like a giant El Camino. And it was tough to park, right?
Yes.
And this is before, rear cameras or whatever. And so I remember that I parked not really great, but I just had to run inside and like do something or get something really fast. And when I came back, there was a note on my windshield and it said, "Nice parking job, fuckface." And here's the thing, I wasn't mad. I thought it was hilarious.
Yeah.
I thought it was so funny. I just stood there laughing because I'm like, number one, yeah, I know I did not park well. Number two, fuckface is really fucking funny. And also that it happened so fast.
Yeah. No, people get so pissed. It's like a big thing on Nextdoor. Yeah.
So my secret passage also involved Reddit. I feel like everything involves Reddit now. You can find everything on Reddit.
Yes.
So we've talked about this, and I know that this is an episode we will do down the line. But Reddit snark pages are fucking crazy.
Yeah.
And some of them like make me really uncomfortable. So I lurk on TikTok. I have a TikTok account. I don't really post much on it because I don't know what the fuck to post. But I love TikTok for recipes and true crime and comedy, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so like there's some people that I followed, and one of the people is this creator named Emily Mariko, who who introduced me, her channel or her TikTok page introduced me to salmon bowls and like how to make different things. And she's very serene, and stuff. And so anyway, I was I had come across a while back, I told you about this, a Jenna Jameson Reddit where it's just completely eviscerating her. And I
Mm.
understand she's controversial. She's gone through some shit. She's done some shit. But I find it so strange how horrible these people are in this Reddit thread. Just, this is a woman who's clearly struggling and has made some choices and has done some things. One of them is that, she does not have custody of any of her kids, but her kids are doing, by all accounts, doing really well with her exes. But she's got addiction issues. She has a lot of things going on. It seems like she might be virtually homeless.
Mm.
This is a woman who is just going through it. And I understand, and that some of the points that people are making are valid. Like, okay, she's done some things, and she's hasn't always been great. Whatever. I don't know her personally, even though she was probably one of the most famous adult stars ever. But I had come across her thing, like wondering what she was up to, and that led me to this. And I was like, oh my God, people are on here daily just criticizing her, saying cruel, horrible things, criticizing the way she looks, the fact that she doesn't have any money, the fact that she's,
Mm.
50 and, just trying to get money from TikTok and staying on somebody's couch, all that, like stuff that is like honestly pretty tragic. And
Mm.
and then I'm like, wow, no one is safe. There's like all these fitness
Yeah.
influencers. So I'm like, who is the least controversial person ever? Emily Mariko, right? Type her name in. Oh no, 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 no. People hate her
No,
too.
they're coming for Emily
They're
too.
coming for this person who has done nothing. It's like she's like the opposite almost of Jenna. Like she's it seems like she comes from money. So like she had
Yeah.
a really nice wedding. And people are like, oh man, she's rich, rich. So they hate her for that. They think she's ugly. She's not. Like, I think she's
Ah,
objectively, you can't call this woman ugly. They're criticizing the way she looks, the way she sounds when she eats, the fact that she
that's terrible.
just all of these things. And I was like, wow, even Emily Mariko isn't safe. And it just that was kind of the dark secret passage I went down, is like, who are these people that go into these Reddit things? I understand the impulse to complain about things like movies.
Yeah.
Like forget, there's this one movie, I will remember it.
Is that the one with that the we watched the horror movie?
No,
Oh.
that one was hilarious. It's the one with Edward Norton, and he pretends like he has multiple personality disorder. He
Oh.
it's I forgot what it's called, and he like tricks the people into believing something. It might be one of his earliest acting roles, and I can't remember now with the movie, but I'm like, dude, this sucks. This is like, there was something in there that I'm like, this just doesn't work. It like the premise, it just doesn't work.
Mm-hmm.
And so I found a Reddit snark thing about that. And so
Jeez.
so it's funny. I'm like, you
Yeah.
go in there, I love it. I'm like, yeah, doesn't this show suck? Yeah. Because it's a fucking show, right?
Yeah.
It's not a human.
People love to hate on things. It's like
They really do.
you can't win. I mean, it's funny. It kind of reminds me of the struggle, and I you feel it most. I think. Well, humans are frightening to me,
Oh yeah. Yeah.
and because we can get into the mobs and start, but for as a woman, I've always felt that it's like we like to shoot our wounded. Like with Jenna Jameson, right? She's
Right.
down. Kick her while she's down.
And these are all women, by the
Yeah.
way, in these snark pages, completely just shitting on other women.
Exactly. And then if you're too big, you're too big for your britches, or you're too good, or you're
Right.
confident, like Emily,
Yeah.
then you also get attacked out of envy.
Right.
And it's right. I mean, yeah, you could probably find a snark page for most anything these days.
Oh my God. We should try and like, let's see if there's a snark page for the Dalai Lama.
Oh my
I'm
God, the Dalai
serious.
Lama has sent some pretty controversial
He
shit.
has. Oh, that's not.
Yeah.
That's yeah. Same with Mother
Also,
Teresa.
wait, the thing he just did with the tongue. He
Oh.
told the kid to suck his tongue.
Oh, I forgot about that. Okay,
That's
yeah, never
definitely a
mind.
snark page for him.
Okay,
Oh, I know. Thich Nhat Hanh.
There we go.
Thich Nhat Hanh. What would I Google? Snark page?
Yeah. Or yeah, Reddit snark. Reddit
Okay.
snark. We got to see this.
Hilarious. No, I don't see one for him yet.
Oh, just give it time.
Yeah. Well, I have one of your thoughts about Thich Nhat Hanh. I'm sure there's something in there.
Well, so what I've discovered, again, by and large, and this is just disconcerting, is if we can find a controversial or a woman who is not controversial, because it's going to be women that go into these things and absolutely eviscerate another woman. That seems to be the thing.
Yeah, guys can pile on, but the ones you've mentioned to me have all been women.
And it's like really cutting terrible things. I feel like a lot of times when guys pile on each other, it's like, you said that you could lift 300 pounds, but you're lying. You know what I mean? It's not like, you're ugly.
Yes.
You're ugly. You're a piece of shit, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, it becomes like they really hit low, like trying to destroy your character, the way you look, the way you stand, the way you dress.
Oh God, I hope no one makes a snark page for us.
If they do, fuck it, man. I've been snarked on so bad being a porn star. Like, you have no. I'm like, what else you got? You've told me I'm old and ugly. You've told me I should do everyone a favor and kill myself. Like, these are things that have been said, and I'm just like, but the thing is, like, I'm not even mad about it. I'm just like, wow.
Yeah.
Really? You don't even know me. It's just weird. It's gonna happen. Like, I mean, that'll mean that we've arrived, right?
Yeah.
That'll mean that we've resonated with
Totally.
somebody.
Right. Okay. Yes, I should wear it as a badge of honor if it happens. When it happens.
Oh God. Speaking of hated.
Oh yeah. Speaking of snarked on.
Speaking of eviscerated, Diane Schuler is our topic, is our episode topic this week. Diane Schuler is, for those that don't know, is a woman in New York who in 2009 was responsible for an automobile a crash that killed her child and her nieces, and her youngest, her son, was the only survivor, and she was also responsible for killing 3 men that were just driving. She was driving the wrong way down the freeway. So without further ado, I'll go ahead and get into it. And so the New York Post headline on August 5th, 2009 read, "Wrong way crash, mom drunk, stoned. How could she?" The Daily News around the same time led with, "Diane Schuler was totally drunk and high on pot when she caused the crash that killed her daughter, her nieces, and 3 innocent men." In bold lettering, the paper also asked, how could she? These headlines seem to suggest that Diane Schuler made a conscious decision to drive these children home completely inebriated. Did she? Her family insists she did not, despite the autopsy report. According to a toxicology report, Diane had a blood alcohol content of 0.19%, with around 6 grams of alcohol in her stomach that had not even been absorbed yet into her blood. The legal blood alcohol limit for driving while intoxicated in New York State is 0.08%. She also had high levels of THC in her system. The morning of the incident, Diane, age 36, her husband Daniel Schuler, their 5-year-old son, 2-year-old daughter, and their 3 nieces, ages 5, 7, and 8, were preparing to head home after a camping trip in the Catskill Mountains. Daniel left in his pickup truck with the family dog, while Diane left in a minivan with the 5 kids. According to Daniel and one of the owners of the campground in Parksville, New York, Diane seemed perfectly fine and sober at the point she left, which was around 9:30 a.m. On the way home to Long Island, they stopped at a McDonald's and then stopped at a gas station in Liberty. There's surveillance footage at the gas station that shows Diane walking into the gas station store, talking to the attendant, and then turning and leaving. Apparently, she was attempting to buy pain medicine, but the store didn't carry the kind that she wanted. After leaving Liberty around 11 a.m., Diane was seen driving erratically, tailgating, honking, and swerving on the interstate. Diane called her brother as she was driving at about 11:30, telling him that traffic was delaying them. And then around 11:45, she was seen pulled over on the side of the road, bent over as though vomiting. Not long after that, she was seen at a rest stop bent over again as though vomiting. Around 1 p.m., another call was made to Diane's brother, where one of the nieces told her father that something was wrong with their aunt, that she was having trouble seeing and speaking clearly. At that point, Diane said that she was feeling disoriented and couldn't see well. Apparently, Diane's brother told her to stay put, where she had pulled over, and that he would come meet them. After this call, Diane did not answer her phone as her brother kept trying to call her, and her phone was found along the highway. At around 1:30, Diane drove the minivan the wrong way down the Taconic State Parkway, going roughly 80 miles per hour. Shortly thereafter, she drove head-on into a Chevy Trailblazer, which then struck a Chevy Tracker. Diane Schuler, her daughter, and her 3 nieces all died in the crash. Her son Brian survived, but still has health issues as a result of the crash. 81-year-old Michael Bastardi, his 49-year-old son Guy, and friend 74-year-old Dan Longo all died. The 2 people in the Chevy Tracker managed to only suffer minor injuries. The Westchester County Medical Examiner ruled the crash a homicide because the victims were killed as a result of Diane's actions. But because Diane died in the crash, no charges were filed. A documentary titled There's Something Wrong with Aunt Diane came out in 2011, which profiles Diane Schuler and tries to piece together the day of the crash. There are interviews with Jackie Hance, Diane's sister-in-law, whose daughters all died in the crash, and there's interviews with Daniel Schuler as well, who, quite frankly, comes off as a self-pitying douchebag. What stands out the most in the documentary is how massively in denial Diane's family is about the toxicology report. They can't accept it. Interestingly, Daniel was charged with a DUI well before Diane's accident, so driving drunk is clearly not that unusual for either of them. Jackie Hance and Daniel Schuler are adamant that Diane was not an alcoholic and maintain that the crash had to have been the result of a medical issue. So, let's talk about Diane Schuler. She had 3 brothers and acted as the caretaker after her mother walked out on the family. She refused to ever talk about it. It was a sore subject. She became incredibly successful in her job as manager in Cablevision's accounting department and was the primary breadwinner, out-earning Daniel, who was a public safety officer. Despite how stressful Diane's job was, she did everything. Took care of her son, took care of her husband Daniel, kept the house clean, maintained everyone's schedule, never complained. Oh, and of course, took care of their daughter as well. She was an overachiever. According to a New York Post article, which we can all take with a grain of salt, but also, if true, it makes a lot of sense. Apparently, Diane was a frequent visitor at a Long Island bar near her work. She would drink screwdrivers and complain about her marriage and how stressful her job was. So here we have a high-achieving wife and mother, one who is reserved about her feelings, past trauma, and who cannot and will not complain to loved ones. She's someone who's carried everyone's burdens since she was a child and also maybe, just maybe, was coping with alcohol and marijuana and hiding it very well. Could it be possible, too, that drinking was so normalized in Diane and Daniel's circle that they wouldn't recognize alcoholism if it bit them in the face? Drinking a bottle of vodka a night, not a problem because they handle themselves just fine every day. Maybe alcoholics in their minds are people who don't function well. Maybe they don't understand what a high functioning alcoholic is. Or maybe admitting Diane was an alcoholic meant bearing some responsibility for allowing Diane to drive with 5 children in the car. I'm not saying that Daniel knew Diane was drunk, and certainly Jackie and Diane's brother Warren could not have known since they weren't there. But maybe they enabled Diane in the past, or maybe not. I'm just speculating. What do you think?
Oh my goodness. I think there's a lot there. There are a lot of questions, but you know, alcohol is so normalized in our culture,
Yes.
and likely in their family, though in the documentary it was confusing. Someone was asking them about the vodka that they had found in the car
Yeah.
after it had crashed. And they were asking them why they kept vodka in their camper at the campsite. And both Jay, his her sister-in-law,
Mm-hmm.
and Danny were like, "Oh, when you make pina coladas and that kind of thing." The person asking them about the bottle of alcohol seemed there's almost like a kind of judgment about it, like, why would you have alcohol in your RV? And it made me wonder, like, about like family secrets in general, and you know, I don't know. So it made it seem like in the documentary that it wasn't a normal thing for them to have alcohol around, which is strange because he has a DUI
Yeah.
and she, so I just, and then the part in the documentary also too that stands out along these lines is when Jay says to the documentarian that no one in her family knows she smokes.
Yes.
So I think perhaps it was like, and normalized in some way, but secret in another. And yeah.
Yeah, that's, I can't help but think about some of the high functioning alcoholics I've known, like
Mm-hmm.
moms
Yes.
that love their cocktails, day drinking, and then they drive home drunk with their kids. And
Yeah.
I've seen it at events, pool parties, brunches. These are like, you know, high functioning, successful moms and families. Kids are straight A students living in gorgeous homes, husbands own successful businesses, but because the drinking is social, it was like it was weird if you didn't drink with them.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's the way it
I
is in our culture. I mean, that's
I
all.
yeah,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
if you're not drinking with them, it's like, well, why not? Well, surely there's something. We have white wine spritzers. What about this? Do you like champagne? Do you like this?
It's the only drug in our culture
Yeah.
where if you don't do it, people are like, what's wrong with you?
Yeah, no, it's insidious,
Yeah.
because it's legal. It's a social lubricant. That you see those shirts. It's wine o'clock.
Yeah.
You know,
Wine moms.
yes, yes. And Diane is like, she is similar to these moms, perhaps that I'm mentioning. She wasn't a stay-at-home mom. She was a mom and a breadwinner, and I can't like. She really came across as like a type A personality in the documentary.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And the thing about alcohol, like, so she's this type A personality who's avoiding pain, and
Yeah.
and so one thing so there's all this stigma about alcoholism.
Yeah.
Because there are different ways of framing, alcoholism. For me, I think about alcohol as it's a toxic, addictive substance. It's a neurotoxin.
Yeah.
It's like any other drug that works on your dopamine. It's like immediately reinforcing because it takes away any kind of pain, puts you in a different state. I don't believe that there are like quote unquote alcoholics and non-alcoholics. I think that anybody who has enough exposure to alcohol could become addicted because it's an addictive substance.
Right.
It's not a character flaw in my mind, but clearly, you know, this is a person who had early trauma, who couldn't ask for help when she needed it,
Yeah.
who avoided pain, including going to doctors and talking about painful emotional things. And I mean, she kind of is the poster child for somebody who would be vulnerable to becoming addicted to alcohol because of her trauma and because of her personality or her history.
Right.
Yeah.
And she's absolutely hated. Speaking of Reddit threads,
Yeah.
when we were researching this, I read some articles, saw the documentary, and then I went into a Reddit thread, and some of them were really, really, really helpful. I mean, people talked about their own experiences with alcoholism.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, there were, those comments like, well, fuck her. She's evil. She's a horrible person. She's selfish. That's the big thing, is that she was selfish, and that her drinking was selfish. And all of this was selfish. And I mean, yes, but addiction by its very nature it's very selfish. So is depression. Like I think these are like the byproduct, or some of the things are, you are so kind of focused on your own pain that you are blind to everything else around you until you're dealing with that discomfort that is happening within you. So, and we'll never know like what exactly went down that would cause this to happen, because the thing I think that stands out for people too is that it's so peculiar, the erratic behavior that happened, that seemed to come on almost very suddenly.
Yeah.
With she's doing these things, and they're trying to piece together what is her process. So it's possible she got orange juice at the McDonald's. So at the campground, she's tasked with 5 children, all under the age of I want to say 12. Yeah. All under the age of 12. Her husband is driving back by himself in the truck with the dog, going straight home. She's got these kids. She's got to get home, but she also has to feed them. And she's got this headache and a lot of this discomfort going on, and so she goes and she gets orange juice, in the McDonald's, and maybe she's pouring vodka in it.
Yeah.
Maybe she's having some screwdrivers. Maybe that's not enough. Because she also is trying to get pain medicine from the gas station. So clearly she's not feeling good. A lot of people smoke pot to help with pain.
Which, if you do that and you've had alcohol, it increases the uptake of THC.
And it makes you paranoid.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, and then ending up driving the wrong way on the freeway is a thing like that. A good friend of my partner of 12 years, he had a friend that was sound operator, sound guy on TV shows, movies, etc., who was in Vegas. I think he was working maybe one of the fights, and he was just driving home late at night on the freeway heading back towards LA, and a car came on the freeway the wrong direction, smashed right into him and killed him.
Oh my God.
And that person was driving drunk. So it's a thing, it's a thing.
Well, we used to, in high school, that's what we did for fun. We drove around my little town drinking alcohol, driving, everyone.
Christ.
And it was considered, I mean, we weren't on the freeway, we weren't, passing out or anything, but it was like a thing we did, which I look back on and think, oh my God. And, I think what a lot of people who are in the throes of addiction will tell you is that there are times that, the people who wake up in the morning and start drinking in the morning and drink throughout the day, they try to maintain a level kind of thing so they can still function.
Yes.
And so that might have been her MO. But this day, for some reason, she crossed over into blackout land, it seems like. Because she was driving down the freeway before she went off the freeway, off ramp the wrong way, or, that little whatever
Yeah.
she took. She was like honking at people, being super aggressive. There was a couple that was going to confront her at the rest stop because
Right.
she pulled off at the rest stop. They did too. And they were going to confront her, and they looked over and she looked like she was throwing up.
Yeah.
And so they didn't. They now in the documentary they talk about how they feel really bad about that because they might have been able to help. But to me, it really seems it's complex.
Yeah.
The whole situation, but it also seems very like clearly. I mean, in some ways, if we were to do the Occam's razor thing, she got too wasted and she ended up in a fatal car crash. But I do think there's something weird about her behavior that day that's different from other days that makes me wonder if it might have been like rage drunk suicide scenario. I know that's you've heard about that. Yeah, and that's one that you've heard of that you kind of don't buy, right? Yeah. But it's odd. It's because if she's able to function as an alcoholic, let's say she was an alcoholic and she was functioning that way, she never did anything like this before. And it's almost like she was driving around, pulling off, getting back on, like leaves her phone. Her phone was found placed on the side of the road as it was like carefully placed. So to not maybe, and in my mind, I'm thinking, is it because she didn't want anyone to talk her out of anything? She didn't want to have any more communication with them. And that was her way of saying, I'm doing this. If that's the case, it's more in like family annihilator territory for me. So I don't know. A lot of people do get really, really wasted before they take themselves out because it's just too hard not to do it any other way. So I don't know, because she had every opportunity along the way to stop and say, or is the moral of this story like learn how to ask for help when you need it? And she just didn't know how to do that, and that's why she ended up killing all these people. But it does feel weird to me. Like she had a lot of points at which she could have said, I can't go on any further. I'm too wasted,
Yeah. So I can see, because it is, I mean, it's so fucking crazy that they made a documentary about it.
Yeah.
That's this is where so the reason why I'm not inclined to see it as like a murder suicide thing is one, I just feel like someone with her personality type would want assurances. So, you shoot yourself in the head, you hang yourself, you take the car yourself and go over a cliff so that you're not running into oncoming traffic. The amount of love and care that she had given her kids, I just don't see why she would take them out with her. And also, you go the wrong way. It's so over the top. And she was someone who was so reserved.
Yeah. Some people were theorizing that, and I don't know about this timing, that she had the 8-minute phone conversation with her brother, and they have not ever said what that was about. And people were wondering if she was really angry with him because he was trying to build a relationship with their mother, who had returned and who had been trying to contact them and develop a relationship with them. She never did, but her siblings were.
Okay.
And so people were theorizing that she was just angry as hell that they were having a relationship with the mother that abandoned them, and that there might have been some rage there.
Sure.
But
yeah.
But
would the rage drive her to suicide, or was she just really drunk, really stoned, and now on top of that, really fucking angry? And her judgment is even more compromised.
I mean, it kind of reminds me of the Hart family. Like, I think she could easily just have been really drunk and just kind of really just trying to get home, because you can be in that. You can be a. This is the weirdest thing about drugs and stuff. It's like a zombie state.
Yeah.
And so she's driving a car and she's not there.
Yeah.
And so I can easily see that happening, and it just being as simple as that and as tragic as that, for sure.
I think that is my inclination, is to think that it's so this is kind of like this is what I think. So Diane may have been hungover at the campground that morning in July, right?
Mm-hmm.
She was tasked with bringing a car full of all 5 of the kids on a long drive back home. Maybe she felt ill, so she started drinking, like hair of the dog. And like lots of addicts, it's okay because she's got it under control, right?
Mm-hmm.
She's done this tons of times. She can handle it. In fact, it was trying to buy pain medicine in the gas station store. It could have been for the hangover. And when they didn't have the kind she liked, she started drinking. You know what I mean? Maybe initially she's like, my head hurts. I don't feel good. I'm going to get some pain medicine shit. They don't have Tylenol or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So I've got the vodka in the car. And then maybe she's drinking, but it's still not working. She's still not feeling well. And she's feeling anxious because she's got a car full of kids. And maybe they're acting up.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they're loud. It's making her head hurt. So then maybe, she pulls over and she smokes some pot. And now she's panicking and worrying about losing control because she's got a few phone calls that happen. And it's that anxiety. She's feeling herself losing control. She can't lose control. This is a woman that it has to be in control at all times. She's so fucking organized, even though she's got a stressful job. She's got kids that she has to look after. Maybe she was fighting with her husband at the I mean, I know this is all speculation, but the pressure is mounting up.
If I was camping with my husband in a camper for the weekend with 5 kids, I would probably be fighting with my husband about something.
Right.
Especially
I mean,
the fact that he left me with the kids to take home, and he's driving home with the dog. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, he really feels like her other child. I mean, this man,
that's what his mother said.
Child.
His own mother said on the documentary. Do you remember that part? She's talking and she's like, "Oh yeah, he was just like one of her other kids." Danny was like, "Oh, yeah."
She doesn't have a partner. She has another child. It could be she's like, I have to take all of them. Can't you take the nieces and drop them off? Or can't you take our kids and then I'll drop the nieces off?
But the fact that she couldn't advocate for herself, that feels like the crux of this, like when we talk about what we like. Yeah. It feels so important that, okay, so when I'm working with clients, basically, one of the basic principles I hold is, pain is not the problem. Pain is information.
Right.
And pain is usually information about something that matters to you. And, but we're all hardwired to avoid pain, because any organisms that don't avoid pain die. But our emotional pain is different. We have these thoughts and feelings that can make us, we can be home safe on our couch watching our favorite TV show. And then all of a sudden we can have a thought that can make us feel totally threatened. And and so we have this terrible thing we have to work with, which is our thoughts, feelings, sensations. And she did everything she could to, I'm sure, as a result of her history, everything she could not to be a burden or to ask for help or be vulnerable. And, she did all she could to avoid pain, it seems like. And that was to her detriment. Because I mean, you lose touch with what you care about if you can't feel your own pain. But, this whole thing, it feels like, she couldn't even in the moment, didn't know how in the moment to say to him, I'm overwhelmed. This is too much. Like, you take the kids. Or say on the side of the road, I'm fucking up. I'm drunk and I can't drive the kids. Please help me. That's the saddest part of this. Yeah.
Yeah. That's the thing. I think that the combination of the weed and the alcohol was too much. The stress of having the kids, the pressure of needing to appear normal once she got to the destination.
Mm-hmm.
And all of this begins to rapidly deteriorate. And then once her brother is like, hey, stay where you are, she's just like, no, I've got to prove that I can pull it together and get the kids home. And then I think she went into a blackout state and crashed, went the wrong way. You know, the honking and all that is like, if I recall correctly, like she was taking hours
Yes,
to get
4
back.
hours, I think.
And it was a 45-minute trip. It should have just been like a 45-minute trip, I want to say. And it could be like, who knows? Maybe they're like, dude, what is taking you so long? What is going on? Why is this happening? You know, and she's like, I'm fine. It's just the traffic. It's, you know, and she's more and more paranoid. I mean, I remember fucking in the old days when I used to fucking do drugs.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd get a phone call or I'd end up face to face with somebody that I had to be completely normal around.
Oh,
And I
yeah.
would be just paranoid beyond belief,
Yeah.
you know, and this is before I had children, you know. So
Yeah.
she's a mom. She's got all of this shit. Who knows what's being said to her on the phone? But like the last thing on earth she wants is to be seen completely out of control. And you're absolutely right. This is an example of what happens when you don't know how to ask for help, when you've never asked for help. The fact that she wouldn't, her husband says, he goes, she didn't talk about her childhood. She just wouldn't. So I never pressed her on it. That tells you a lot. She can't even talk about what happened to her.
Yeah, and it's sort of a cautionary tale about like the consequences of successfully hiding your pain from everyone around you. You know, there's this great quote. It's my favorite quote by Winnicott, who was a psychoanalyst and a pediatrician. He said, "It's a joy to be hidden, and a disaster not to be found."
Yeah.
And you know, it's just a sad like it probably never occurred to them because who they saw her as, that there could be something so wrong. And you know, because I'm thinking about the phone call that her brother made where the kids were in the car, they were pulled over.
Yeah.
He at that time, I'm sure he regrets this, but he probably had no reason to. But at the time, I just keep thinking, oh God, why didn't someone just say, kids, get out of that car and do not get back in it? Like, no matter what, do
Yeah.
not get back in it. But no one did, because I think no one could ever imagine that she would be capable of something like this because of how much she hid her struggle from them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That is you see the way in the documentary, the way her family behaves, they would not accept. Like the coroner is like, bro, these are the toxicology results, and they didn't accept them. They're like, no, do another, you know, check her for this, check her for that. That this had to have been just a medical reason. This had to have been a medical reason. And in the end, remember, like they were spending so much of their own money to do an independent investigation, and the answer was the same.
Yeah. Yeah, I
And they
know.
would not accept it.
I know, because I think what goes along, yeah, it's like, I was trying to really feel into this because I'm not good at compartmentalizing when I have something that's troubling.
Yeah.
Some people are. I can compartmentalize a lot of things, but you know, so I thought, okay, well, if this family is sort of organized in this way, right, and there are some indications that I mean, like anyone, they don't want to feel painful feelings. So if they accept this, then they have to accept that they were completely blind to what was going on
Sure.
with her, and that they'd have to accept the reality that she is capable of that. And again, there's the stigma too. It's like a lot of people think that you're a bad person if you get addicted to alcohol, but newsflash, like it's the way the brain works. Like addiction is about your brain doing what it's supposed to do, learning. And
Right.
like, you know, but we don't, as a culture, we don't really buy that yet, I think. But yeah, so I could imagine they're just protecting themselves by hanging out in the fantasy that this was just an anomaly, some kind of freak accident.
Yeah. I mean, it is our nature, and I think about, like, the people that really, really, really hate Diane Schuler for this, and I get it. It was
Hmm.
horrible. It was horrible what happened. But as a society, we are hardwired to avoid pain at all costs. That's why we're addicted to our phones.
Yeah.
That's why we're addicted to playing games or watching, watching YouTube and TikTok and things, to not have to be with ourselves or be in the moment.
Hmm.
We're always looking for ways to get high. All of
Yeah.
us.
Yeah.
We're all looking for ways to get high. We're all looking for ways to self-medicate. Some situations are more extreme than others, especially people who have endured trauma, which clearly Diane Schuler, being abandoned by her mother at 9 and then expected to care for the men in her family. And she went on doing that. She's taken care of her childlike husband and taking care of her actual children and being the primary source of income. And again, all that pressure on her. And it's
Yeah. I mean, she probably got a lot of reinforcement too for
yeah.
being, and her identity was so wrapped up in it, I think,
Yeah.
too, that there's a great website I found actually that is worth looking at for people who are interested. It's just someone's opinion. It has a good timeline. It's called, I don't know who writes this blog, but it's called
Mhm.
The Theorem Factory.
Okay.
And the person who wrote it actually said, it's a so basically, a devastating multi-car crash from 2009 gets some clarity with a fresh look at psychological profiling and behavioral analysis. And there is a really interesting analysis. This person thinks that she probably had obsessive compulsive personality disorder.
Usually type A people have some degree of that, right?
Yeah, and OCPD is so different from OCD.
Okay.
But this website goes a lot into it, but this is really interesting. So they say, I question whether Diane could have been diagnosed with OCPD. It's a mental health disorder in which a person is obsessed with perfection, overly rigid, stubborn, focused on order and exactness and frugality. Danny describes Diane's remarkable ability to add up the cost of groceries in her head while at the market down to the
Wow.
penny. He relays a time while purchasing a car, Diane caught the salesman in a $100 error. While Diane may have been aware of wherever every penny in their household was going, she was also at times impulsive and bought things on the spur of the moment, which made her feel good. OCPD is marked by high level anxiety. Persons who are highly anxious and have experienced profound loss are at a higher risk for hoarding behaviors, which are often comorbid with OCPD. So apparently, she would start shopping in July for Christmas.
Oh, okay.
And she kept frequent to-do lists, was meticulous, highly organized, and steady. On the other hand, she could be abrupt, overly rigid, demanding, and stubborn. So, yeah, I think she was just, really, um, like when you think type A, this is type A,
Yeah.
like classic, tightly wound. But see, for every diet, there's an equal and opposite binge, right? If you're
Right.
that orderly and organized, you're going to have moments where you go out and I guess she left the house one day to buy milk and she came back with a Jeep Cherokee or something.
Christ on a cross.
Yeah. So I might have gotten that wrong because I think she went out for something else and came back with a flat screen TV, and then she went out for something else and she came back with a Jeep
Yeah.
Cherokee. Yeah, so I think there was an unstable element, but
Yes.
yeah, but most of the time she probably kept it together.
Yeah. I ended the outline with the question of how could she?
Yeah.
Requires looking beyond the fact that she was a mom and an aunt, and therefore hardwired to not fuck up. She was a mom and aunt, the breadwinner, the caretaker, the boss, the housekeeper, the wife, the mom to her brothers after her mother left. And I suspect someone who didn't get offered help very often, as well
Yeah.
as refused to ever ask for help. She was someone who hid pain and dulled pain with booze. And none of this excuses what happened, but it is possible to be a good person who does a horrible thing. And the irony is that Diane, who was a type A personality, who was organized and in control at all times, who never wanted to make a mistake, made the worst mistake a person could ever make, and she is still hated for it.
Yeah.
It is like, it reminds me, it's funny how sometimes things can come full circle, but I think about, to a lesser degree, obviously, but these snark pages where people are just so hard on, like, for example, like we were talking about Jenna Jameson, and then like poor little Emily Mariko, who's like done nothing to
I
anybody, you know.
know.
But it is just, I don't know if it's because I've gotten older, but I find myself just better equipped maybe to extend grace. Maybe because I am so aware of my fucking flaws,
Awesome.
and it's easier sometimes to see how things happen. If there is an afterlife, if there is Diane Schuler, like, somewhere looking down on all of this, like, I don't think probably there's anybody that would be harder on her than she probably would be on herself for this very thing.
Absolutely.
And
Yeah,
that is the thing, is how could she? It's like, well, let's look and see, how could she? Let's see how this happened. Let's
exactly.
try to understand, because there is something to be learned here, like you were saying, this thing of asking for help. If she had been able to say, hey, yes, I don't know what happened, I drank, I know I shouldn't have, I drank, I'm also stoned, and I'm really scared right now, and
That just
I
wasn't in her repertoire.
it was not going to happen.
She wasn't taught how to do that, or she wasn't well practiced in doing that. That her context didn't shape her to be a person who could do that. Um,
And there was
and
no reason for her to think that this was something that she would fail, because she hadn't failed up to
exactly.
this point. She had gotten away with this, with
Yeah.
drinking, with all of it,
Yeah.
and again, lest anyone think I'm trying to give her a free pass. This isn't a free pass. This is horrible. It's absolutely horrible. It's absolutely tragic. But to not see kind of the tragedy that was Diane's life as well.
Right. It's like all human behavior makes sense if you know the history and the context. And an explanation is not an excuse.
Yeah.
And it's worth, judging and condemning. Our mind judge. That's what we
Yeah.
do. We judge, but we don't have to act on it and shame people. And what nothing is ever really learned from shaming
Yeah.
someone. Um, and it's a tragedy that happened. It's could she? Do we all wish that she could have had a transformation and not done this? Yes. But it's it makes sense given what we've been talking about, right? That
Yeah.
there was no either the people in her life saw it and enabled it, or they just didn't see it. And in our culture where alcohol consumption is so normalized,
Yes.
it's like and this is a phenomenon people talk about, and there's a lot of denial in alcoholic family systems.
Yeah.
There's a lot of stuff that goes into protecting the person who's using. And she might have actually just not he worked nights, she worked days. They were two ships passing in the night.
Sure.
He may not have known.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think, I mean, one thing is clear, and that is that everyone in her family, I mean, by all accounts, just
Mm,
going based on what we know from articles and like documentaries and stuff, but um by all accounts, no one saw anything in her behavior to indicate that there was a problem. Whether that's because they themselves are addicts, or just grew up in that kind of family system where it's just so normal to, start drinking at noon and continue on until dinner. There was a lot of alcohol in my family. I
hmm
Nothing seemed weird. I grew up seeing people start drinking as soon as they got home. If my aunt got home at 2, she started drinking,
hmm
and kept going until she was completely drunk. It wasn't unusual for her to take forever to make dinner, so that people were eating dinner at 10 o'clock at night, because she was just drunk and talking on the phone. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
this kind of thing. That was very normal to me growing up, to observe that.
hmm
Um, So within their family, you know, you just, or, remember, like the silly uncle, oh, he's funny. And it's
Yeah.
like, actually, he was falling down drunk. That's why he was so fucking funny. You find out later when you're an adult. But by
Yes.
all accounts, they didn't see anything. And I'd like to say too that even though it's fucking frustrating watching this documentary and seeing the level of denial that they have,
Yeah. Yeah.
there's no question that they loved her and valued her and miss her desperately.
Yeah.
Um, you know, both things can be true at once. They can be enablers and terrible in that regard, but at the same time, they love her. I still think her husband's a douche, but I don't even think he's raising their son, right? Like,
Oh,
he's
I
like
don't know.
frustrated because the son has, had so many issues from the accident. He's just very self-pitying. I really, he's so annoying. He just is. I know, I'm sure he misses her and he loved her very much, but like, fucking A, dude.
I know there is an element of that passivity and sort
Yes.
of, right, like, I don't know. And I think maybe their dynamic kind of like fed it. Like it,
Oh,
he
sure.
and but yeah, at no time, well, I don't know that we know of, did he kind of step forward and say, "Let me take some of this off your plate.
Yeah.
Let me like step up and." So and then it's interesting how Jay kind of swoops in and is very maternal toward him, the sister-in-law.
Yes.
And so
Yes.
I think that he definitely pulls for that. That he's and it's funny because he just seems like a very kind of mellow person. But I know so many of us women who see him and have like very strong reactions to the fact that he is so childlike.
Yeah.
It's a yeah, he is does seem very childlike.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so I can imagine her feeling very alone in that relationship.
I mean, and again, she was falling, it seems as though she was falling back into that pattern of taking care of the men in her family.
Yeah, yeah,
So she didn't know any different. And of course he's just like delighted to have somebody that is babying him, because I mean, the fact that his own mother is like, oh, he was like another child for her, like, as though that's normal. He was probably a mama's boy,
oh yeah.
you
The way
know?
she talks, yeah, yeah. Well, and also it's just like, oh my God, we would all love to have a personal servant who like did all the shopping, cleaning, whatever. Like that would be a sweet deal.
Right.
But I have enough empathy, for Tim. That's my
Yes.
husband. That's my husband, everybody. Um, I I look at him and when he's doing too much and working too hard and I'm kind of not, I try to pick up the pace
Yeah.
I'm aware of and I'm empathizing. And I don't know that that was happening with them because
Right.
if he was aware and empathizing, he might have, not been her child.
Right.
Yeah. It's a painful story.
It really is. It really is. Uh, it is one that I remember hearing about the case actually when it happened, just briefly, um, and being, of course, initially just really angry that it happened, and then hearing, that about her toxicology results and being really angry, um, that she would do this, and it's interesting. I mean, we see it so often in all kinds of things, from like politics to, these tragic things in the news and all that. And there's this impulse to want things to be really black and white. This is good. This is bad. This is right. This is wrong. Because
Yeah.
it just makes things easier to understand. And um you want to be angry at someone. You want to blame someone for something. And again, she is responsible. She's fully responsible for this. But it is like life, like everything. Um, it is a lot more nuanced than we would like, right? It's frustrating.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the reasons I became a therapist is because I think it's such a tragedy, like that it's so hard. We get so caught up. We get in our own way so often. And, you know, things can change with the right kind of intervention, the right kind of learning and experience. And I think the tragedy is it didn't in time, like
Yeah.
it's her vulnerabilities led to this tragic thing. And it wasn't her fault that she had this horrible history where she felt left by her mother. And, um, and her friends loved her so much. She was like the class clown in high
Right.
school, and so, yeah, it's like there was so much potential but it just, that it ended this way is just, like I keep saying the word tragic, but it's just a
Yeah.
tragedy. Addiction itself is a tragedy. It's
Yes.
terrible. And it's like the numbers are something like, oh, I always get this wrong. It's from that book I love, Dopamine Nation.
Right.
She talks about only 10% of people, and I could be wrong. I think it is 10%, but somewhere around there, only 10% of people who have addiction problems
Mm-hmm.
make any sort of meaningful recovery. Yeah,
Ouch.
and like what you said earlier is true. Like we are constantly in modern life faced with addictive substances, addictive processes, like foods that are
Sure.
designed to make us want more, internet that's designed to make us to take our
Yeah.
attention and give us a little dopamine and keep us on
Yep.
that wheel. And we're constantly having to work with that as modern humans. And that when we see people fall and take others out with them as a result of their addiction, it is nothing but tragic to me. Yeah.
Yes.
Because there's help out there. And not, I mean,
Yeah.
even if there is help out there, though, it's hard to get free of an addiction.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Man, I hear that. Gee whiz. Yeah. One thing that I find so odd. So you finished the documentary. Did you see the very last image in the documentary?
What was it?
It's Diane Schuler's dead body.
Oh, you know what? No, I don't think I saw it.
Yeah.
Is it right before the credits?
I don't know if it's right before or right after. I can't remember, but I was so surprised that they would show her dead body.
Whoa.
At the crash site,
Okay, yes, I saw the crash site. I didn't see the body.
Yeah. Okay. So it's there.
Okay.
And it was an odd choice. It was an odd choice because I felt like the documentary did a really good job, I think, of being fair. It was an unbiased documentary, but it wasn't like a scathing kind of indictment against Diane Schuler herself. I just found it really surprising that they would show her image. Now, keep in mind, I'm like really fucking morbid. I am not put off by images of dead people. I'm not. Um, so I'm not saying I was offended or upset. It was just an odd choice.
Yeah.
Because, presumably, well, no, I don't think that they owe her family anything as far as like, we're not going to show this out of respect for these people that we think are annoying because I don't know. I felt like the documentary filmmakers were a little bit like, guys, are you still thinking that she wasn't drunk?
The fact that thing that Jay said about smoking made the edit, I was like, oh yeah, they have an opinion. Yeah.
There are some thoughts and opinions happening here, but it was interesting that they showed her, and I was like, is there? I mean, it's a really good documentary, so I feel like there was a reason why they made that choice. And it could be a cautionary thing, like, hey guys, this is what happens when you're really fucking inebriated and you're driving. This can happen. So it could be that there was an intention there to, sort of like a warning almost.
Yeah. It was definitely an aggressive image.
Very aggressive. It's a very aggressive image. I was not expecting it. I was like, oh God. And then I had to like go back and look and pause it and go, yeah, that was a choice.
Wow.
Um,
I'll go look. I'll go back and look.
now I know you will. You're gonna be like, what?
Jim
Their
always
dead
makes
body?
fun of me. Jim makes fun of me. We were at his house the other day, and I was like, his mom and dad's house, and I was looking across this. They have a walk street. They're in Venice, and so there's no cars don't drive between their house and the other houses. It's like
Right.
a walking path. And I was looking across the street, and there was something on top of this bush. I was like, "What is that?" And Tim's like, "Oh, he's like, it's probably a towel or something." He's like, "You're always wanting to find a dead body." It's true. Um, but
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, not that I want someone to die and have their
Right.
body left discarded somewhere, but I always thought it would be so wild to stumble up. I mean, we've all seen Stand By Me.
Yeah, yeah. They go looking for it. And then they're, they have that thing where they're like, oh man. Like it's like a downer.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, no, I'm terrible that way. I'm always looking for like, that'll be like, person was hit by a train crossing the tracks. I'm like, is there a picture? What'd they look like? I
Yeah.
can't help it. And it's not even just like it's just like what does it look like when something is like what does it look like when a plane crashes into the side of a mountain? What is it's I mean, it's a morbid fascination, but it's also like, well, what happened? I guess it's a science interest. Like if you take a body and you have a person, you throw them against the side of a building. What does it look like?
Yeah.
So
Curiosity.
yeah,
Yeah, I mean, yeah. Oh, this is a whole episode we have to do on why some people are moved toward
yeah.
this kind of thing and why other people are find it totally aversive. Like there's no way I would be interested in seeing that. I'm very interested in talking about that with you.
What's crazy is I was looking up something about. I think it was remember Michael Hutchins when he hanged himself,
Yeah.
and I was like, and I remember it was a thing of like how what is that process like? So I did a Google search. And then, of course, Google comes back at me with like, if you're having thoughts,
Yes.
you get help now. And I'm like, oh my God, if the feds ever looked at we've talked about this. If
Oh,
the feds
yeah.
ever looked at my search history, it's like, what is it like to die this way? Does my pug love me? Why do people want to eat shit?
Back when Jessica Chambers was like burned in her car, burned alive, I kept Googling that so much that I was convinced that an FBI agent was going to show up at my house and be like, "Are you connected to this?"
Right.
Because I couldn't handle not knowing. I just wanted
Yeah.
to know more. I wanted them to catch the people, and I just kept looking, looking, looking. Yeah. Oh,
No, it's wanting to understand. We want to understand why and
yeah.
how. And it's a way of making sense of being human.
Yeah.
I really think that's what I think that's what it comes down to. It's less like getting excited or aroused by imagery or not like certain types of knowledge. It's just, that life is mysterious. We are mysterious. Um and also uh more often than not, I feel like it's also a way for us to connect to each other, you know,
Yeah. It's about
and
empathy. Yeah.
humanize people and also just be fair. I want to be fair. Like all this stuff with Diane Schuler, and I have a lot of compassion, It's just like we were talking about Mr. Hands last week and
Hmm.
stuff with Keith or Pinion.
Hmm.
Yeah. Um just understanding that 9 times out of 10 people are lonely or they want to feel validated and understood, or they're afraid to ask for help, like Diane Schuler, or even the um, Mr. Hands, just me wanting a sense of community. For people that don't know what we're talking about, you can go listen to episode 2
Then
about
you
Mr.
will
Hands.
know.
Yeah. So yeah, I guess we can wrap this up. this episode about Diane Schuler. And
if you guys want to, should we talk about where people can
oh
find
yes,
us?
thank you. Still
So,
getting used to this.
well, yeah, no, I earlier I had to pull up both our
Yeah.
Instagram and our TikTok because I can't remember what they are. So you can find us on Instagram at Secret Passage Podcast. And right now we have 2 followers. Who are they?
Yay.
Me and Tim.
Oh my God, I've got to follow.
And then we X, on X we are at Secret Pass Pod. We couldn't get the whole. It might change if I can land a better name at some point, but I think that's okay.
Secret Pass Pod. Yeah.
Secret Pass
Pod.
Has
a nice sound to it. Excellent.
Excellent.
Everybody go outside and get some sunshine or hug a tree or something to kind of get a palate cleanser after this really depressing.
Seriously, I touch grass.
Touch some grass. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I am really looking forward to next time.
Yes, me too. We'll see you guys next time.
See you later.